Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're going to be looking at the invisible, incredibly fragile web that literally keeps every living thing on this planet alive. And more importantly, the urgent, escalating fight we're in to save it. We hear a ton about climate change and environmental destruction in the news, right? But to truly get what's at stake here, we've got to go all the way back to the very foundation of life on Earth.
And to grasp that big picture, well, we actually have to start incredibly small. Did you know that you, yes you, right now, are an ecosystem? It sounds a little crazy, I know, but human beings are literally walking, breathing ecosystems for thousands of different microorganisms living in and on our bodies. And just like your body is its own little world, we can scale that whole concept out. A tiny puddle on the sidewalk, the dirt under a single rock, a massive sprawling forest, and even the Earth itself, they are all interconnected ecosystems.
So what exactly is an ecosystem when you strip it down? At its core, it's just a biological community and its physical environment. Think of it as this complete, deeply intertwined network of living and non-living things, all interacting together in one specific area. It is not just about the animals. It's the physical space they occupy, the resources they completely rely on, and the very delicate balance that keeps the whole shebang going. Now, for any ecosystem to actually survive, two absolutely crucial components have to exist in perfect harmony. On one hand, we've got the biotic components. These are all the living things, plants, fungi, animals, and yeah, us. On the other hand, you have the abiotic components. These are the non-living elements, things like air, water, sunlight, temperature, and soil nutrients. The real magic of our planet is this endless, fragile dance happening between these two sides every single second.
And what's super cool is how these biological structures constantly build on top of one another. It all starts with a single species, basically a group of individuals that interbreed to produce fertile offspring. Now, group those individuals of the same species together in one habitat at the same time, and you've got yourself a population. But, a forest isn't just rabbits or just foxes. It's a mix of both, plus insects, plants, and fungi. When you bring all those different populations together into one area, you get a vibrant, living, breathing community.
But within that bustling community, absolutely every living thing has a job. In ecology, they call this a niche, which is just the specific role a species plays within its ecosystem. Take a bee, for example. Its niche is pollinating flowers. A rabbit's niche being a small, grazing prey animal that reproduces quickly, which then feeds the predators above it. It is this perfectly designed system where everybody has a part to play. And if even one of those players just vanishes, the entire community feels the shockwave. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Perfect harmony demands completely unique roles. No two organisms can occupy the exact same niche for long. If they try, it turns into fierce competition, and that competition will eventually force one species to either leave that ecosystem entirely or go extinct altogether. Survival literally requires a delicate balance of completely distinct, separate contributions.
For thousands of years, humanity basically lived in relative harmony with all of this. We looked at our natural riches and assumed they were, well, unlimited. But then came the rapid explosion of civilization and industrialization. Our interference with nature didn't just grow, it skyrocketed. We stopped acting like just one species participating in a community, and we started breaking the balance of the entire web.
I want you to think about the number 1 billion. That is the staggering amount of tons of dust and harmful substances that global industry pumps into our atmosphere every single year. 1 billion tons. We are pouring unprecedented, frankly terrifying amounts of abiotic pollutants into our biological home, completely choking the very systems that keep us alive. And the fallout? Well, the byproducts of this careless interaction are completely disrupting both those biotic and abiotic components we talked about earlier. We're seeing thick smog choking our major cities. Vast, ancient forests are being cut down or burned, which totally upsets our planet's oxygen balance. And as a direct result, rare species of animals and plants are just dissipating forever. Rivers and lakes are drying up to nothing, and the ozone layer is taking a massive hit. Guys, these aren't just warning signs. They are undeniable proof of a global ecological crisis.
If you want to understand exactly how fast an ecosystem can be utterly devastated by human interference, we just need to look back at the Chernobyl tragedy in April 1986. That atomic explosion in Ukraine is still one of the most horrifying ecological disasters in human history. The immediate aftermath left 18% of the territory of Belarus completely polluted with radioactive substances, and the long-term effects? Tragic, lasting damage to agriculture, forests, and the health of Ukrainians, Belarusians, and neighboring nations. It's the ultimate tragic example of how human-made chaos can instantly wipe out a biological web.
Now, Chernobyl was an isolated event, but today? Today we are facing a global, creeping version of ecological collapse. The Earth has already warmed by 2 degrees since the large-scale use of fossil fuels started back in the 19th century. So we really have to ask ourselves, what happens if we just do nothing? What does this planet look like by the year 2050 if we fail to hit zero emissions and blow right past that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit global leaders set? Well, the projections from climate scientists are, to put it mildly, grim.
By 2050, extreme heat anomalies are expected to become 8 to 9 times more frequent than in the entire history of the planet. We're talking about a world where summers in London routinely push past 40 degrees Celsius, while Delhi literally bakes it over 45 degrees. The strain from everyone desperately blasting air conditioning will cause massive, widespread power grid failures, and at night, the soundtrack of the city will just be ambulance sirens, as hospitals are absolutely flooded with patients suffering from severe heat stroke and dehydration.
And the heat is just the beginning. Because higher temperatures increase evaporation, way more water vapor builds up in the atmosphere. This creates this terrible dual threat of extreme, completely unpredictable weather. On one side of the globe, regions like the southwestern US, southern Africa, and eastern Australia will suffer through these exhausting, prolonged droughts. But on the other side, countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan will get battered by incredibly severe, destructive downpours and massive flooding.
This brings us to another massive number, 250 million. That is the staggering, estimated number of climate migrants who will be forced to literally flee their homes by 2050. Why? Because coastal buildings will flood and essential infrastructure will be completely washed away by rising tides and superstorms. Millions of people will flood into rural areas and inland cities only to be met with a severe, desperate lack of housing and jobs.
Now, if we project even further out, say to the year 2100, where the planet warms by an additional 0.5 to 1.5 degrees, it gets worse. More than half of all remaining glaciers will melt. The ocean's thermal expansion will cause sea levels to rise by over a full meter. Entire nations, like the Marshall Islands and Tuvalu, they will become completely uninhabitable. Places like the Maldives will have to spend billions building floating pontoons just to connect homes above sunken cities. Meanwhile, megacities like New York and Shanghai will be desperately trying to survive by constructing massive 10-meter-high protective dams.
But perhaps the most terrifying part of all this is that 1/3 of the entire planet's food supply will be at extreme risk. Small farmers in Africa, Asia, and South America who produce a huge portion of the world's food are going to face extreme peril from these unpredictable heat waves, droughts, and floods. Just working outdoors will become deadly. Crops will vanish from grocery shelves, food prices will absolutely skyrocket, and hundreds of millions of people could face starvation.
Okay, take a deep breath. I know that sounds completely overwhelming, but listen to me. We still have time to rewrite this future. We are not helpless here. Believe it or not, in less than a decade, initial global actions have actually already improved global warming emissions forecasts by almost 4 degrees. That is massive. The groundwork for a huge turnaround is being laid as we speak. Right now, 159 member countries of the UN have officially established environmental protection agencies. Major international research centers are stepping up in critical areas like Lake Baikal. Plus, millions of everyday people working through organizations like Greenpeace are out there doing the hard, daily work on the ground to directly preserve our environment and manage ecologically vulnerable regions.
But we can't just stop there. Current pledges aren't going to be enough on their own. We have got to dramatically accelerate our efforts. Humanity must urgently adopt real, actionable shifts. We're talking heavily incentivizing renewable energy, drastically reducing how much fossil fuel we extract, rapidly speeding up the shift to electric transport, actively protecting our forests, and strictly regulating industrial production. These are the tools we actually have right now to restore the balance of our ecosystem.
So I want to leave you with a really powerful thought from today's sources. We need to fight for every fraction of a degree. Literally every ecosystem, from the microscopic life inside your own body to the grandest oceans of our planet, relies on a delicate, precise balance. We broke it, yes, but we are also the only species with the intelligence to actually fix it. So now that you know exactly what is at stake, what role will you play in saving our shared home?